I have 1 p.m. now. I'll restart the recording.
Very good. Is Patrick with us?
He is joining us right now, Dr. Longman.
Great, great.
Okay, and Patrick has joined us.
Good. Very good. We're back in session. Before we begin agenda item 13, we need to report out the closed session.
I'll defer to council.
Waiting for council, yes.
We have no action items that need to be reported out.
Thank you very much. With that said, we'll move on to agenda item 13. City of Sacramento Combined Collection and Treatment System. This is the time and place for hearing to consider adoption of an MDPS permit for the City of Sacramento's Combined Collection and Treatment System in Sacramento County. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the notice of public hearing and the meeting procedures published with the meeting agenda. At this time, evidence should be introduced on whether the proposed action should be taken. All persons expecting to testify, raise your right hand and take the following oath. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, answer I do. Thank you. The designated parties are, we only have one designated party, the City of Sacramento. The total times allowed for testimony and closing statements are as follows. City of Sacramento, 20 minutes. The panel of concerned citizens, 20 minutes. All other persons are interested persons and shall limit their comments to 3 minutes, and a timer will be used. Can we show the timer? Please state your name, address, affiliation, and whether you've taken the oath before testifying. As a reminder, if you intend to speak, you should already be in the Zoom meeting room using the meeting ID provided on the board's website and the password you received from our staff. If you have not received a password and you intend to speak, you can email us now at agenda5, that's all one word, agenda with the numeral 5 at waterboards.ca.gov. Once again, that email address is the word agenda, A-G-E-N-D-A, followed by the number 5 with no space, and then the ampersand, the .ca.gov. Also, please provide the word speaker comment in the subject line so that we can provide you with a password to access the Zoom meeting. For those in the Zoom meeting, you will be on mute and your camera turned off until it is your turn to speak. Our meeting host, Gene Coughlin from our IT team, will unmute you and ask you to turn on your camera if you have one when it is your turn to speak. When you're done speaking and the board members have completed asking questions, you'll be placed on mute and your camera will be turned off. If any designated party is having technical difficulties, please notify us immediately by either raising your hand. You can do that virtually on the Zoom under the Participants tab, or if you're using a telephone, you can raise your hand, so to speak, by pressing *9. You also may send us an email at the web address that I previously mentioned, agenda5@waterboards.ca.gov. If there are technical difficulties, we will stop the hearing to address those issues and will not resume until all designated parties can participate. Does council have any legal issues to discuss at this time?
We did receive several late comment letters, and I do recommend that the chair allow them because they are not prejudicial to any party.
We'll admit them to the record.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no other issues.
Thank you. We'll now begin with the staff presentation.
Okay, Dr. Long, I'm going to share my screen. All right, do you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Oh, we see it.
Excellent. Let's see here. Trying to move some things around here. Oops, I don't want that over there. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Longley and members of the board. My name is Jim Marshall. I'm a supervising engineer in the Central Valley Water Board's Rancho Cordova office. I have taken the oath. This presentation is regarding the proposed NPDES permit renewal for the City of Sacramento Combined Wastewater Collection and Treatment System. The City of Sacramento provides collection and treatment of municipal wastewater and stormwater. The city owns and operates both a combined sewer system that conveys mixed municipal wastewater and stormwater drainage and separated wastewater and stormwater collection systems. The combined system serves approximately 200,000 people. The portion of the city that is served by the combined sewer system is shown in green shading and serves the downtown, East Sacramento, Oak Park, and Land Park areas. These areas include developed infrastructure prior to 1946. The tan areas shows developments that expanded the original service area and have been constructed with separated wastewater and stormwater sewer systems. These areas contribute only wastewater flows to the combined sewer system. This slide shows a depiction of a combined sewer system. Combined sewer systems collect municipal wastewater comprised of domestic wastewater from sanitary connections and industrial wastewater from industrial users. Combined sewer systems also collect stormwater runoff from stormwater connections. During dry weather and most wet weather situations, they carry municipal wastewater and stormwater flows to a wastewater treatment plant. However, during significant rain events, combined systems include relief structures where the excess stormwater, along with the municipal wastewater that is in the system, overflow the relief structures and discharge directly into surface waters. These discharged surface waters typically receive at least primary treatment and disinfection, but during extreme rainfall events can be untreated. These discharges are called combined sewer overflows, or CSOs. Combined sewer systems are rare in California. The Sacramento combined system, shown by the red star, is one of two in California, the other being in San Francisco. Throughout the United States, however, combined sewer systems serve approximately 860 communities with a total population of about 40 million people. These systems are predominantly located in the older communities in the Northeast, Great Lakes region, and Pacific Northwest. The black dots on this slide represent communities with combined sewers. Combined sewer systems are unique and are permitted differently than other NPDES dischargers. So next, I will discuss the basics of the regulatory framework for combined sewer systems. Combined sewer overflows are defined as a discharge from a combined sewer system at a point prior to the publicly owned treatment works, or POTW. Unlike most typical wastewater treatment plants that discharge continuously, overflows from combined sewer systems occur infrequently for short durations and only as a result of significant storm events. Combined sewer overflows are point source discharges subject to the Clean Water Act's NPDES regulations. Combined sewer overflows are regulated by US EPA's Combined Sewer Overflow Control Policy that was adopted in 1994. The Combined Sewer Overflow Control Policy was adopted to provide a national framework for committees to comply with requirements of the Clean Water Act. The two main elements of the policy are implementation of 9 minimum controls, which are technology-based actions that require implementation of best management practices to reduce combined sewer overflows and their effects on receiving water quality. The second aspect is the development of a long-term control plans for controlling combined sewer overflows to ensure protection of water quality standards. I will discuss these in more detail a little later in my presentation. So next I will discuss the combined sewer system operations for the City of Sacramento system. This is a slide I showed earlier of combined sewer system. The Sacramento combined system includes both in-system storage facilities and treatment facilities that provide storage to reduce the number of combined sewer overflow discharges. The in-system storage facilities include oversized sewer pipes or storage vaults, such as the McKinley vault that I will discuss later. These in-system storage facilities are used to equalize peak flows from high rainfall events that can overtax the collection system. The storage systems help reduce the number of combined sewer overflows to the river and reduce surcharging of the system that can result in combined sewer system outflows and flooding. An outflow is where the pipes are surcharged and combined stormwater and wastewater exit the system. The Sacramento combined system also includes 2 treatment plants that provide storage. After storm flows subside, combined wastewater stored in the treatment systems can be routed back to the wastewater treatment plant. If a discharge is needed, the Sacramento combined system is able to treat most of the discharges with primary treatment and chlorine disinfection. So under most conditions, the typical operation is routing up to 60 million gallons per day of flow from the collection system to the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. The annual average daily flow rate sent to Sacramento Regional is approximately 17 million gallons per day. The proposed permit requires the city maximize the amount of combined wastewater that is routed to the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant for treatment. The city accomplishes this by utilizing the storage in the system. However, when the Sacramento combined sewer system is overtaxed during rare extreme high stormwater flow conditions, the system discharges mixed stormwater and sewage to the Sacramento River with only primary or no treatment, which carries the risk of public exposure. The risk is minimized during the time period of these discharge events due to high river flows and stormy weather in which contact recreation is minimal. For the Sacramento combined system, nearly all combined sewer overflow discharges are treated. When storage capacities are depleted, the mixed stormwater and wastewater receive primary treatment, chlorine disinfection, and dechlorination prior to discharge to the Sacramento River. The events are typically infrequent and short in duration, about 4 to 5 hours, but can last for a day or more during large storms. Over the past 10 years, the city has averaged 5 discharge events per year. During extremely wet conditions, untreated mixed stormwater and wastewater from the combined system may discharge to the Sacramento River. The proposed permit prohibits untreated discharges unless the city's treatment systems are operating at full capacity. These discharges are very rare and dictated by high stormwater flows in the system, where wastewater makes up only a small fraction of the total flow. The last untreated discharge was in December 2012. This pie chart shows how the combined sewer system flows were routed during the term of the current permit. The blue section shows that 95% of all combined sewer system flows were sent to Sac Regional for full treatment. The remaining 5% of flows, represented by the green section, were combined sewer overflows to the river that received primary treatment and disinfection prior to discharge. As I mentioned, there were no untreated discharge events during the permit term. This figure shows combined sewer system discharges to the Sacramento River by year, dating back to 1991. The red sections show the volume of untreated combined sewer overflows to the river. The green and blue sections represent volume of discharges to the Sacramento River that are treated. However, please note that prior to 1999, the red and blue sections were untreated. Since full implementation of the combined sewer overflow control policy in the early 2000s, discharges to the river, especially untreated discharges, have decreased significantly. Excuse me. So next, I think I need some more water. Hold on a sec. The tea wasn't cutting it. All right, so the next I will discuss the main permit requirements for the combined sewer system. The permit includes effluent limitations and monitoring requirements. Effluent limitations are included based on best management practices for operation and treatment to minimize discharge of total suspended solids, settable solids, pH, and pathogens. Effluent limitations are also included for chlorine residual temperature, some pesticides, and methylmercury to implement water quality objectives and total maximum daily loads to protect beneficial uses of the Sacramento River. Sorry. Furthermore, the proposed permit includes monitoring requirements for effluent and receiving water to evaluate compliance with limits and characterize the discharge and receiving water for next renewal. Having trouble here. All right. The proposed permit requires continued implementation of the 9 minimum controls included in the CSO control policy, which are best management practices. Some of these best management practices include proper operation and maintenance, maximizing collection system storage, maximizing delivery to the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, providing primary treatment of combined sewer overflows prior to discharge, and providing public notification when overflows or outflows occur. These controls are implemented as provisions in the proposed permit. The discharge is required to submit annual reports demonstrating compliance with the 9 minimum controls. The proposed permit requires continued implementation of a long-term control plan, which includes programs to reduce flows from infiltration and inflow in the separated sewer, water conservation, and green infrastructure to reduce stormwater runoff. The city's plan also includes construction projects to increase storage throughout the combined sewer system, such as the McKinley Vault. This is to reduce outflows. The proposed permit requires annual progress reports and updates as needed to implement the CSO control policy. Due to concerns about increasing flows from growth within the city, such as the rail yards and river district, the proposed permit includes a new provision requiring the city implement measures to ensure growth does not result in additional CSOs, outflows, or an overall reduction in percentage of flow delivered to the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. In addition, an update to the long-term control plan is required to estimate the 30-year build-out flows and identify projects to address increased flows, as well as evaluate the outflow goals that have been in place since the late 90s to ensure they are adequately protective of public health. Consultation with appropriate public health officials is required. Finally, the city must update the design storms that are used for their modeling based on current climatic information and considering the effects of climate change. Finally, the proposed permit requires an updated water quality assessment to evaluate the effectiveness of the combined sewer system operations in meeting water quality standards in the Sacramento River to protect beneficial uses. The city last conducted a water quality assessment in 2013 that demonstrated water quality standards were being met. Due to recent construction of nearby downstream drinking water intake and new statewide bacteria water quality objectives, board staff will be looking for a thorough evaluation of possible impacts to the municipal and domestic water supply beneficial use. All right, next I will discuss the comments received on the tentative permit. Comments were received from the City of Sacramento and several concerned citizens. The city requested clarifying and editorial changes that have been made to the proposed permit, and the city supports adoption of the permit renewal. The concerned citizens are contesting the permit. The following slides contain a summary of the comments received and staff responses. Comments were received from 15 concerned citizens in the East Sacramento area. The concerned citizens are opposing the city's construction of the McKinley Vault, an in-system storage facility that is being constructed in McKinley Park. The commenters expressed similar concerns, so I have combined the responses and will address the comments pertinent to the proposed MPDS permit renewal. In the following slides, the comments are in white font and staff responses are in orange. The main comment received is that the combined sewer system must be separated. The concerned citizens state that combined sewer systems are antiquated, sewer outflows are unacceptable, and are posing a public health issue. Although McKinley Vault is intended to reduce outflows and flooding, concerned citizens contend that the project is just a band-aid that will not solve the problem. The only solution is to separate the sewers. Combined systems are legally allowed under the Clean Water Act. The proposed permit requires implementation of a long-term control plan to reduce outflows and flooding. The regional board required the city to evaluate separating the sewer system, and it was determined to not be feasible. At this point, it may be helpful to discuss some of the history related to this issue. The issue of continued improvement of the Sacramento combined system versus construction of separate storm and sanitary sewer systems was studied extensively in the 1990s. Following a series of major outflows that were flooding the streets, residents, restaurants, and businesses, the Central Valley Water Board issued a cease and desist order in 1990, which required the city to submit a detailed technical report and propose future time schedules for improvements to the combined system to reduce the outflows. The city submitted the subject reports, and the Central Valley Water Board adopted waste discharge requirements, approving the city's interim operational changes until final improvements could be made. The city conducted numerous studies between 1990 and 94, including an evaluation of the option of sewer separation. In the meantime, as I previously discussed, US EPA established the combined sewer overflow control policy that set a consistent national approach to regulate combined sewer systems. The city studies determined that separation was infeasible due to magnitude of construction, waste generation from removal of the existing combined sewer system, increased water quality impacts, and substantial costs. More immediate actions needed to be taken to address flooding issues. In 1996, the regional board updated the waste discharge requirements, accepting the proposed solution and implementing the EPA's CSO control policy. This has put the city on their current path to develop projects to minimize flows and increase storage throughout the combined system to reduce outflows and flooding. In this figure, we jump ahead about 15 years after the city initiated the plan to remediate the current system. In a 2010 permit, the city was required to begin reporting outflows from the combined system in the sanitary sewer overflow database. This figure shows the number of outflows within the combined system each year from 2010 through 2019, which have decreased over time. And as I mentioned earlier, the combined sewer overflows to the river have also decreased. There are pros and cons of combined sewer systems. The primary benefit of combined sewer system is they provide treatment of most of the stormwater, which also pose inherent risks when discharged without treatment. Over the past 10 years, the Sacramento combined system has delivered on average 95% of all flows to the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant for full treatment. That means first flush and dry weather stormwater, which contain pathogens and toxicants, are being treated prior to discharge. However, although outflows can be minimized, they cannot be eliminated entirely, and untreated discharges to the river will continue to occur during extreme rain events. US EPA's CSO control policy recognizes that risks are low during periods when CSOs occur due to high river flows and cold, stormy weather when contact recreation is not occurring. The proposed permit requires the city to continually look for ways to improve operations and requires studies to evaluate the risks of the Sacramento combined system outflows and combined sewer overflows. Furthermore, the proposed permit requires the city to reevaluate its outflow goals that are based on a 10-year, 6-hour storm to ensure they are adequately protective of public health. The next comment is a concern about extensive growth in the Sacramento combined sewer system. New planned urban growth will increase flows, resulting in more outflows and overflows. The city's combined sewer system development policy requires capacity management. Flow increases from new development cannot result in an increase in outflows or overflows. Developers have to offset flow increases with projects that reduce outflows and overflows. The city is also implementing projects that result in reduced flows, such as water conservation, infiltration and inflow reduction in the separated sewers, and green infrastructure projects to reduce stormwater runoff. Although the city has policies to address growth, board staff share the concerns that growth could result in increased combined sewer overflows, combined system outflows, or an overall reduction in the percentage of flow delivered to Sac Regional, and have modified the tentative permit to include additional provisions. As I mentioned earlier, the proposed permit includes new provisions to address growth and a requirement to update the long-term control plan to evaluate 30-year build-out flow. In addition, the long-term control plan annual reporting, the proposed permit requires the city specifically address what they did the previous year to manage flows due to growth. The next comment is that the city does not have adequate funding to properly maintain the combined system or implement the long-term control plan. In April 2020, the city conducted an audit of the Storm Drainage Fund, which identified deficiencies such as funding shortfalls and an inadequate accounting of the drainage assets within the combined system. The drainage fees have not been increased since 1996. The proposed permit requires proper operation and maintenance through implementation of the 9 minimum controls. The city provides annual reports identifying critical combined wastewater collection and treatment system components and evaluation of the maintenance performed during the previous year. The proposed permit focuses on the critical systems such as pump stations, treatment systems, major interceptors, and detention basins. The city's annual reports document significant maintenance that is performed. Furthermore, the audit reviewed the combined sewer system and the separate stormwater system, which is regulated through a MS4 stormwater permit. The MS4 permit also requires the city secure sufficient resources to properly operate and maintain their drainage system. Board staff are reviewing the city audit and share concerns about funding. The proposed permit requires the city update its long-term control plan and establish timelines for completion of critical projects to reduce outflows. The updated long-term control plan will need to identify funding for these projects. The final comment is regarding the McKinley Vault project. The concerned citizens contend the project is not sufficient because it does not result in the city meeting the long-term control plan goals for combined system outflows for a 10-year, 6-hour storm. The McKinley Vault project is one of several projects the city is implementing to increase storage in the system to better handle peak storm water flows to meet the long-term control plan's combined sewer system outflow reduction goals. Based on the city's model, the McKinley Park area has been found to be one of the largest outflow problem areas in the combined collection system. The McKinley Vault is designed to help manage and equalize flows in the collection system during heavy storm events by preventing backups and flooding. Staff concurs that the McKinley Vault by itself does not result in full compliance with the outflow goals, but will provide additional protection in the area and is part of the city's overall long-term control plan to reduce outflows. The proposed permit includes a new requirement to reevaluate the outflow goals and provide timeline for meeting the goals. The analysis is to be conducted in consultation with appropriate public health officials. Staff recommend adoption of the proposed NPDES permit renewal. I would like to enter the staff presentation, the agenda package, and the case files for this facility into the record. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Jim. Any questions by board members?
Yeah, Jim, I'd just like to ask a question. This is in regards to slide 30, where you made reference to one of the comments is that the city cannot maintain the CSS properly, and you noted there in your response to staff shares the concern about the funding. How do you, what is the process of addressing this issue of the lack of funding, and where we you've expressed some concerns about the lack of funding and what impact it might have, or is there?
Yeah, and I think we need to talk with the city a little bit more on that. I mean, with the combined sewer system, they have funding more than just the drainage fund. The drainage fund is for stormwater drainage. So it may end up being maybe it's a bigger deal for our MS4 stormwater permit, where that's probably their main source of funding. For the combined system, there are other funding sources. They are constructing several projects currently and planned. But I agree that it is a concern looking at that. If they're having trouble to raise their rates, it is a concern. I think we need to look at the audit a little bit more and meet with the city and see what their reaction is going to be to that audit report and how they're going to address those deficiencies. But it is an issue, and I think our compliance and enforcement staff and permitting staff will be working with the city.
Okay, and the reason I raised the concern is because the residents have raised that concern. And if we have that issue, I would just say that it's important that we continue to work with the city to find ways to look at that and see how we can lessen that impact for the concerns of the residents they've raised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any further comments by board members?
Real quick, I think we need to take a recess for about 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. I need to talk with you.
Yeah, if you could, give me a call.
Okay.
Okay, I've paused the recording here for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can.
Dr. Longley, be
Yes, sir.
careful where you put that cell phone.
This cell phone, is that better?
We don't want it too close to the microphone.
No. And I simply like to announce that we're going to continue the recess until for about 7, 8, 10 minutes. We have a technical difficulty we have to deal with. One of the board members had to step out, and she's dealing with a crisis, so to speak, and we'll wait for her to get back before we continue the board meeting so we have a quorum.
You're talking about me?
Not you.
No, it looks like Carmen may have had some technical difficulties. So
I panicked. I thought it was you, Patrick.
no. Thankfully not. Looks like Carmen can be back on about 10 minutes. So my suggestion would be 1:55.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. So
We will just leave this active. Okay, Carmen, we have set you as a co-host.
And we will begin at 5 to the hour.
Very good.
We're back in session. I might announce we restored our quorum. We'll now proceed with testimony by the City of Sacramento. And Gene, as the city representatives, are they unmuted?
Let's see. That will be Tony Bertrand.
Jeff Harris.
And Vice Mayor Harris, I have sent you an unmute request. Gentlemen are free to talk.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Bertrand with the City of Sacramento. I just wanted to clarify how we would manage the presentation. My assumption was that we would run it similar to the executive officer's presentation by having staff run through the slides, but I do have a staff person that has it queued up and could share the slides, and we could run through it that way, whichever the preference is.
What works best, Gene?
I am prepared to run that for you. I just make sure I load the correct one. Is that City of Sac CSS presentation?
Yes.
Let me start that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will share my screen. And you should see that now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, I will go ahead and get started. Chair Longley and members of the board, my name is Tony Bertrand, and I am the engineering manager for the City of Sacramento Department of Utilities, and I have taken the oath. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information about the city's combined sewer system. I would first like to thank the board staff for the hard work they've done to develop the permit before you today for your consideration. Next slide, please. Today, I will be covering the following items: an overview of the combined sewer system performance, an overview of the long-term control plan, an overview of new development mitigation, and some background on the decision not to pursue system separation. I realize that some of these items are similar to what board staff Marshall presented. I do believe that while some of it is redundant, I do take a little bit of a different approach on some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the slides as they're presented. Next slide, please. Over the last 25 years, the city has invested in major capital improvement projects to the combined sewer system with a goal to, one, reduce overflows, both treated and untreated, to the Sacramento River, as shown in the graphic on the left. Second, to reduce outflows that occur in streets, as shown on the graphic in the middle. And third, to reduce flooding, as shown on the graphic on the right. Next slide, please. Operationally, there are three different stages of discharges from the combined sewer system. Stage one includes flows up to 60 million gallons per day. This includes all dry weather flows and small storm event flows. All of stage one flows are sent to the regional treatment plant for secondary treatment. This represents greater than 90% of the annual wastewater and stormwater flows into the combined sewer system. And as Jim had noted earlier, just to note that the average daily wastewater or dry weather flows are only about 17 million gallons a day. So the other 43 million gallons per day are available for the treatment of stormwater. Next slide, please. Stage two includes flows between 60 million gallons per day and 440 million gallons per day. During stage two, flows greater than 60 MGD are sent to our two combined sewer treatment plants. These plants both provide primary treatment that includes removal of solids, disinfection of chlorine, and dechlorination prior to discharge to the Sacramento River. Less than 10% of annual flows are sent to the combined sewer system treatment plants. Stage 2 is typically reached during storms that produce greater than 1 inch of rainfall or high intensity rainfall events. Next slide, please. Stage 3 is reached when flows are over 440 million gallons per day and the capacity of the two primary treatment plants are surpassed. The flows that cannot be treated are discharged directly to the Sacramento River. It's important to note that an untreated discharge that bypasses our primary treatment plants has not occurred since December of 2012. And for this event, several rain gauges captured precipitation exceeding the 5-year and 10-year return period storms. Next slide, please. To provide another example of system performance, this chart shows the total volume of flow of the combined sewer system during the 2018-2019 water year, which is from October to September. The orange and blue, the solid orange and blue are flows to the regional treatment plant, and the hatched orange and blue areas are flows that are treated by the city's primary treatment plants. This was a wet year with 26 inches of precipitation. During this year, the greater than 99.9% of sewer flows were sent to the regional wastewater treatment plant for treatment. In addition, 3.8 billion gallons of stormwater received secondary treatment at the regional plant, and 0.45 billion gallons of stormwater received primary treatment by the city's two wastewater treatment plants. This stormwater would have been discharged directly to the Sacramento River without treatment if it were a separated system. Next slide, please. Now to talk about water quality. There's a water quality benefit to having a combined system that is not always recognized. During stage 1, all dry weather flows, such as runoff from irrigation and what would be considered an illicit discharge in the separated storm system, receive secondary treatment at the regional treatment plant. This schematic shows typical levels of bacteria in the wastewater and stormwater systems and how the regional plant treats both the stormwater and wastewater to less than 2.2 mpn per 100 milliliters. Next slide, please. The water quality benefits during stage 2, when 60 mgd of stormwater and sewage are being treated by the regional water treatment plant, and the additional flows up to 440 mgd go to the city's two primary treatment plants. Primary treatment results in bacteria levels of less than 8 on average. This is just slightly higher than the bacteria levels after treatment at the regional plant. Next slide. So far, I've been talking about overflows from the combined sewer system that are discharges to the Sacramento River. Now I will discuss outflows. These are flows that occur when the system is at or above capacity and flows end up on the street. This has been an ongoing challenge, and the city has completed many projects since 1995 and have more in construction or planned that will provide significant reductions in outflows. From 1995 to 2018, work completed under the Combined Sewer System Improvement Plan included projects with a total cost of approximately $124 million. The projects completed during this time reduced outflows by approximately 50%. From 2019 to 2026, $57 million is estimated to be spent for projects that are completed in construction or planned per the long-term control plan. These projects are estimated to reduce the remaining outflows by approximately 38%. Next slide. This slide shows current and planned projects since 2009, with those projects completed highlighted in green, those under construction in yellow, and those planned in red. The focus of these projects has been on reducing outflows and flooding. As you'll notice, the projects are distributed throughout the city, prioritizing the areas with the largest outflows. Next slide, please. In 2018, phase 1 of the long-term control plan was initiated. This plan utilized an adaptive management approach for reducing outflows and flooding while minimizing overflows. Phase 1 includes 6 of the highest ranked capital projects and 3 pilot projects. I will cover the 6 capital projects on the next slide. The 3 pilot programs include a green infrastructure program, a rainfall-derived inflow and infiltration program, and a water conservation program. As covered in the previous slide, the capital projects are estimated to have reduce system-wide outflows and flooding by 38% for the 10-year storm and up to 57% for the 5-year storm. The reduction from the other programs will be evaluated as they're developed and implemented. Next slide, please. This table shows the schedule for completion of the 6 highest ranked capital projects that are included in the long-term control plan phase 1. The 9th Street project, as you see, has been completed. The McKinley Water Vault is under construction and should be completed soon, and the remaining projects are in different stages of design. This work represents a capital investment of approximately $57 million and is planned to be completed by 2026. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to move on to new development mitigation. I know that's been a big question. The city recognizes that there can be increased flows into the combined sewer system from new development. The city has several tools in its toolbox to assure flows to the combined sewer system from new development are mitigated. These are divided into 2 categories that are both required for all projects. First, wastewater mitigations options include paying a combined sewer system mitigation fee, participating in a planned combined sewer system improvement project that includes mitigation for the specific project, or providing on-site mitigation. Second, stormwater mitigations options include providing on-site mitigation such as a detention basin, participating in a planned combined sewer system improvement project that includes mitigation for specific projects, installing green infrastructure, or paying a stormwater mitigation fee. A couple of items to point out are when a project pays mitigation fees, these funds can only be used for projects that provide mitigation in the combined sewer system. And the Department of Utilities has staff located at the Community Development Department office to assure every new project that increases wastewater or stormwater flows provides the required mitigation. Next slide, please. An example of how development project wastewater and stormwater flows within the combined sewer system are mitigated is the Rail Yards project. For those that aren't familiar with this project, it's a 220-acre master plan development in downtown Sacramento. The Department of Utilities staff have been participating in the planning for the project for many years. One of the major challenges was the mitigation of wastewater and stormwater from the development. The mitigation requirements includes the separation of wastewater and stormwater flows within the development area. This required the construction of a new stormwater pumping station and discharge pipes to the Sacramento River. In addition, combined sewer system development impact fees will be required for all projects, and no vertical development can be completed until construction of a major pipeline replacement and upsizing in 3rd Street is completed. The master planning for the Rail Yards project also included upsized wastewater pipelines throughout the project to provide capacity to facilitate redirecting wastewater flows from the River District area directly to 3rd Street, bypassing the wastewater flows from a large portion of the combined sewer system. These mitigation requirements ensure that the development of the rail yards will not cause increases in outflows and overflows from the combined sewer system. Next slide, please. Now I'll talk a little bit about system separation. DOU evaluated system separation 25 years ago, and these are the main challenges that were used to evaluate separation. They are still valid today. First, the planning level separation cost estimate was approximately $2.3 billion in today's dollars. We believe this cost estimate is low. Next, construction would need to be spread over 20 to 30 years. Every street in the combined sewer system area would be impacted, and limited rehab on the existing system would be done during this time. Based on the 30-year construction period, it equates to an annual capital improvement budget requirement of nearly $77 million per year for 30 years. For reference, that's more than 7 times the annual improvement budget of the combined sewer system for the last 7 years. Next, because the combined sewer system is found in the oldest parts of the city, we would anticipate significant issues with existing utility conflicts that could make separation infeasible in some areas. And finally, the city would lose the water quality benefits from the treatment of first flush events. And in addition, the new separated drainage system would require treatment to be incorporated into the design and construction, increasing costs. The city continues to support the decision to not move forward with separation. Next slide, please. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide information about our combined sewer system. The city would like to encourage the board to approve the permit renewal as written. With the remainder of our time, I'd like to introduce City of Sacramento Vice Mayor Jeff Harris, who would like to say a few words, and we have staff available to answer questions whenever and as needed. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Tony. I think that was a very concise presentation and presented a lot of facts to the board. Chair Longley and EO Palupa and the esteemed board members, thank you for letting me say a few things here. I'd like to tell you that I represent District 3 in Sacramento, which includes the rail yard and the River District. You should know that I founded our water committee for the city of Sacramento. I was a founder and am still the chair of the Lower American River Parkway Conservancy Program. I sit on the Regional Sand Board, on the Sites Reservoir Joint Powers Authority. So water issues are definitely something that I work on quite a bit. I also live very close to Paradise Beach, which was mentioned in the very excellent presentation by Mr. Palupa. I'd also like to take just a second to thank you for the work you do, because obviously the quality of our regional water resources are essential to the quality of life for all of us here. I'm especially excited about the swamp and CV salts and the McClellan cleanup that you focus on, because these directly affect the city of Sacramento. I have been very involved in the construction of the McKinley Water Vault from its inception. Conducted many outreach meetings to the community, directed that about $1 million of the project be dedicated to park improvements for McKinley Park, which is probably our most used and beloved community park in our system. The McKinley Vault would store about 6 million gallons of stormwater runoff, combined with some small amount of sewage, but it would hold it only for a very short time before the effluent was discharged to regional sand. You know that regional sand is upgrading their plant. I know that you're very well familiar with that. And much of this water will probably end up going through tertiary treatment, so it'll be extremely clean by the time it's discharged into the Sacramento River. The benefits of that treatment were already brought up by Mr. Bertrand. When we talk about separating the sewer system, I have to tell you a little bit about the finances in Sacramento. We could raise our storm drainage rates, and we would have to affect much change in this regard. But in fact, a little bug got in our way. It's called the coronavirus. And at this time, to raise rates on our constituents is very difficult for the council to do, considering that so many people in the city are facing an existential challenge to their business, to their lives and their livelihoods. At some point, we will raise the storm drainage rates. It has been programmed for a while, but life events happen, and this would really be the wrong time to hit our ratepayers with a rate hike. As mentioned, to separate would cost billions. And the city is facing an economic crisis. We are looking at red ink for many years. It took us almost 8 years to get out of the Great Recession. It looks like this economic stress will require a similar recuperation period. The idea of separating for most of the people in the city is a pretty horrifying thought, considering the amount of infrastructure that would need to be torn up and rebuilt before we could effect separation. If you look at our long-term control plan, and in fact, if you look at the graph that was presented by your staff, even in the very wet year of 2017, when the Oroville Dam suffered its difficulties, we did not have overflows of untreated sewage into the Sacramento River. I think that this demonstrates that our LTCP is working. There are many reasons why it makes sense for us to continue on the path that was started in 1996 with the blessing of your board. You know, we're very deep into this series of projects that will help us manage our CSOs and SSOs. I have lived in East Sacramento for 35 years.
Sir, you have a minute and a half left.
Thank you, Chair Longley. I'm almost done, actually.
Okay.
You know, this is a good path for us to continue on because it's working, because it's affordable, because we do not overburden our constituents with very, very severe rate hikes. To actually separate would probably raise the bill of the average ratepayer to the point where they couldn't handle the change. Right now, the average single-family home is paying about $200 in utility bills, and it could treble that if you only prorated the amount that needed to separate the system amongst the people in the combined sewer system area. For all of these reasons, I would say that I would encourage you very highly to renew our permit. We're doing good work, we're on the right path, and we are serving the needs of our constituents in a very strident manner. Again, living in the area, I've seen the sanitary sewer outflows, I've seen the flooding, and I really look forward to the McKinley Vault coming online. By the way, we poured the last concrete. It's nearly complete in terms of the major structure. So we're well along the path to implementing this new amenity to help us along the way to control our CSOs and SSOs. Thank you very much for your time. Again, the city of Sacramento appreciates all the work that you do on our behalf.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions for the city of Sacramento from board members or any comments?
I was curious about the rail yard, and I appreciate the update on that. So I don't have any questions. I just was curious about that, and glad to hear that there's a plan in place.
Any further questions or comments from board members? I'd like to say that if I had my druthers, there would have been a separated system put in a long time ago. But I think both our staff and the city have pointed out that the system works quite well. It has very few overflows now, and we would expect those to decrease in the future with the new improvements. I think what is interesting, something that you don't get, a real benefit that you don't get from if we had a separated system, are those first flows that would be going into the Sacramento River degrading quality. I think that was a good point made by the city. Another thing that Jim brought up in his presentation that I thought just needs to be reinforced, and I'll be asking Jim about this on closing remarks, but this system meets federal standards, meets state of California standards. So I think that to go into a lengthy program that would be very effective, would not be very cost effective, particularly in these times and in future times. I think when we have so many other demands out there for infrastructure, these are getting to be expensive times to live in, and that has to be taken into account. At this point in time, we'll hear a presentation from a panel of concerned citizens.
Yes, Dr. Longley, we have Ann Broderick up first. I have sent you an unmute request, ma'am.
Yes, and I have a slideshow.
I have your presentation here. Let me start that.
and I have taken the oath.
Very good, thank you.
And there we go.
And we also have Will Green and Melinda Johnson. Are they presenting separately?
I know Will Green is.
Okay.
And I'll tell you when to do the next slide, okay?
Very good.
Okay, my name is Ann Broderick. I have lived in East Sacramento across from McKinley Park for more than 40 years. I'm here to share information with you that reveals some significant compliance, maintenance, and asset management issues that exist in the Sacramento Utilities Department and the combined sewer system. I have reviewed 3 document sources and will speak of those findings. Next slide. Next slide. Next.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm just trying to see how to advance that. Allow me 1 second.
I think just a down arrow.
There we go.
There you go. Okay. The first document source that I reviewed was the violation and enforcement action documents from the Regional Water Board. And they show the city has 23 violations since 1990. The last violation was as recent as 2017. Next slide. Next. Hello? Next, okay. The second, no, one more back. There you go. The second data source I reviewed was the sanitary sewer overflow database, and it showed 111 sewer overflows from the combined sewer system since 2010. There was no data before 2010, and all records are self-reported by city staff. You will notice on this chart, 88% of the sewer spills were due to root intrusion, grease, or debris. Beginning in 2014, they recorded whether the spill was storm-related or not. 9 were storm-related, 4 were not. Beginning in 2017, they recorded some of the size of the pipe, material of the pipe, and the age of the pipe on many entries. Most were 8-inch pipes made of clay. The average age of the pipe was about 100 years. Next slide. The last part. What I found more alarming was the fact that the separated sewer system, which often discharges into the combined sewer system, had over 16,000 sewer spills since 2006. 89% were due to root intrusion, grease, or debris. There have been over 350 in the first 6 months of this year. Next slide. The third document source I reviewed was the 2020 Stantec audit report of the Department of Utilities Storm Drainage Fund, and it said the following: critical information related to the storm drainage assets is lacking, such as installation date, expected useful life, original cost, material, size, and capacity. This lack of asset information made estimation of the system age and forecasting of replacement cycles based on the asset ages impossible. The estimated valuation of the city storms drainage fund assets range from $4 billion to $16 billion due to insufficient data. The sewer system is aging faster than assets are being repaired or replaced. An already aging stormwater system will continue to deteriorate as cash flow shortfalls restrict the rate of system investment, thereby increasing the risk of critical system failures. Without a rate increase, the city will be upside down by 2030. Existing revenues will not cover current operating and capital expenses. Next slide. To summarize, the city has a long history of water quality violations. Many of the incidents were not reported timely by the city or were reported by an outside source, and yet the Regional Water Board continues to renew the permit. The city has a significant sewer maintenance problem. Maintaining 100-year-old cracked clay pipes in the city of trees is costing a lot of maintenance dollars. Root intrusion in cracked clay pipes reduces the flow area and the hydraulic capacity of the sewer system. Further, it is indication that the clay pipe is beyond its useful life. Roots cannot penetrate new PVC pipes. In 2015, the city estimated they only had the ability to replace the wastewater pipes every 410 years. The Department of Utilities budget indicates their expenses are greater than their revenues. Without a fee increase or obtaining money from other sources, all current and future sewer projects are in jeopardy. The records indicate the city will be unable to implement the long-term combined sewer system improvement plan, which it has negotiated with the regional board as part of this permit. Next slide. The Department of Utilities does a poor job of database management of their infrastructure assets. Without an accurate asset data register, how can the city input correct data into any computerized software model that the regional board has requested of the city in the last 30 years for various environmental and engineering studies? All current and future development projects in the city are evaluated for how each project impacts the existing combined sewer system. But if you do not know what you have, how is this accomplished? The computers industry garbage in, garbage out slogan applies here. Results are inaccurate. The entire combined sewer system improvement plan is therefore questionable. Next slide. Possible solutions and warnings. The city of Sacramento should stop all stormwater and sewer projects, as well as construction development, until its fiscal resources are in order and the Department of Utilities data register is up to date. All citizens in Sacramento deserve a separated system and a utilities department that acts in their best interest and not just those of developers and the consultants. There is a real threat the city will be unable to fund the infrastructure replacement and maintenance necessary for continued reliable and sustainable service. Global warming and climate changes will make the risk of critical sewer system failure even worse. Thank you for your time.
Any questions by board members? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, Dr. Longley,
Yeah.
I heard all those concerns, and is this the time to ask staff to respond to some of those, or how will we handle
You
it?
certainly can.
My suggestion would be we wait until the panel's over because I think that
Okay.
there would be
This
common
is a
questions.
panel, that's correct.
That's fine.
Okay, so hold your question. We'll wait till the panel is over with. And we'll go on to the next panel member.
Yes, we have Dr. Will Green. And sir, I
Good
have your
afternoon.
presentation loading.
Thank you.
Let me share that. We have 13 minutes left on the timer.
Good afternoon, Chair Longley and the board. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. First of all, I'd like to give my commendations to Jim Marshall and Jean for helping us get organized and make this presentation possible. Sometimes it is possible to, conquer old dogs learning new tricks. So welcome to my first experience with this. I'm Will Green. I'm a retired physician, and I'm representing myself as well as several neighborhood association and groups. East Sacramento Preservation Neighborhood Association, Save McKinley Park Coalition, Halt the Vault Coalition, Concerned Citizens for a Safe and Sewage-Free McKinley Park, as well as the 11 other respondents to the June meeting on not renewing the NPDES permit. Next. 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 Thank you. Question: are we prepared for climate change? The city of Sacramento has acted irresponsibly by not protecting us from sewage contaminated storm flows. The renewal of the NPDES simply allows the city to continue this behavior. Planning for a 10-year storm protection falls short of the need. With climate change, the storms intensify and increase in their frequency and duration. The CCIP has no provisions for the impact then of huge storms in this climate change. Next. So what is fair? The Regional Board previously supported the separation of the sewer and storm sewers, and this has been recommended over the last 60 years to the city that that's the problem, it should be done, and here we are in 2020 and nothing's been done other than these Band-Aid approaches. The city of Sacramento did not take the advice, stating that this separated system would be cost prohibitive. Thus, the city of Sacramento and the regional board are allowing 23% of Sacramento residents to be put at increased risk of flooding with the effluent contaminants in perpetuity. Next. 77% of Sacramento residents are already protected by its separated system. So what is the correct and fair solution? Next. Citizens of East Sacramento, Land Park, Oak Park, and downtown have rights to a safer environment as those who are protected by the separated sewer system. Yet the city continues to put all of us at risk with contamination, with diseases, and with costly flooding. Next. The city of Sacramento continues to approve higher density and greater intensity infill projects in the downtown, midtown, and East Sacramento neighborhoods. Has the city of Sacramento done anything to really update the improvement system to reflect these increases in flow to the already stressed system? Of great concern, and I just learned this 2 weeks ago, City Council just accepted, quote, the ministerial approval for infill housing. This was as recent as July the 28th, 2020. This means that anywhere from 2 to 200 residential mixed-use, high-density infill units can be placed in the downtown and or the neighborhoods without environmental impact reviews and without access to public clearing. Next. So the city doesn't have the funds, nor does it know where the funding will come from to complete all the projects required to prevent flooding under the 10-year storm. Residents will continue to then be subjected to overflowing combined sewer pipes indefinitely, since the city has no financial means of completing the improvements. Next. So the problems are this: the city cannot, under its current conditions, correct the deficiencies that it promised the regional board as recently as 5 years ago. The city of Sacramento can no longer implement functionally safe improvement plan. Next. So the solution ultimately is to place Sacramento and all of Sacramento on separated sewer and storm drains. The Regional Quality Board needs to deny the renewal of this NPDES permit and place a building moratorium on the city until the problems of this improvement flow of the combined systems can be fixed. And I mean a permanent fix. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I believe we have one more from the panel. Is that correct?
That is
I think we have
correct.
two more.
Two more.
Thank you.
Melinda Johnson, I'll unmute you. And I can
Thank you.
do any presentations we might have for you.
Yes, I have slides that are there, and
Sure, I'm loading that right now.
thank you. I did take the oath. My name is Melinda Johnson. I've been a resident of McKinley Park neighborhood for 43 years. I've assembled a presentation for you of photographs spanning the decades that the citizens of McKinley Park have been asking the city of Sacramento for a separated sewer system. These photos were taken by myself, neighbors of McKinley Park, and concerned media reporters and photographers. I would like to say that watching one of the city's presentations or Jim's presentation in slide 26, it shows a decrease in sewer outflows since after 2014. As residents, I can tell you, and you will see in my slides, we've had the worst flooding ever after 2014. In the Oroville, the year of the Oroville Dam failure, we had horrible flooding. So I don't know if people are out of touch or what, but what you see when you live here is quite different from what the picture that the city is painting. Please change the slide. Thank you. Oh, the neighborhood of McKinley Park is well known for frequent sewage flooding events, as shown here from a local news broadcast in 2014. That was the slide you previously showed. Yes. Okay. Next slide. Pictured here is a 2009 sewage flooding event beginning with waters gushing up through 2 manhole covers and nearby street drains. This rapidly flooded the neighborhood's yards and homes. The existing combined sewer system is deficient in its ability to contain sewage and rainwater from winter storms, and with the capacity of the vault to contain sewage and runoff water from the current climate change projections. Next slide, please. In this 2019 photo, sewage and combined waters flood into neighborhood streets through gaps in the welded manhole covers. This is one of many Band-Aid style approaches the city has used over the past 3 decades. This McKinley sewage vault is their latest attempt. Next slide. In March of 2017, turbulent sewage waters emerged from a manhole cover on Parkway. City workers told us it was due to a turbine failure. To prevent injury to residents and park visitors, the manhole covers were welded in place after the pressure from sewage and runoff waters caused them to become airborne projectiles. Next slide. In December 2012, a car and its occupants were overtaken by rapidly rising sewage-filled floodwaters on McKinley Boulevard and 34th Streets. The car's occupants were photographed here after abandoning the car, wading through sewage-filled floodwaters to get to safety. And if you look closely, you can see sewage, slud, and mud here coating the woman in blue's jacket's knees. Next.
And can I ask the presenter, and if we could hold her time, I appreciate this, and I just kind of want to give everybody a fair sort of notice that I will be looking for the city of Sacramento to explain this, especially given their understanding that there hadn't been any issues since I think 2017. So thank you. Please continue.
I have more slides. I had to edit them down. I have them for every year. I live on the street that you see in the slide right now. I've had to miss work. I'm a school teacher. I've had to miss work and not be able to be there for my students when this happens. I can't get out of my driveway. I would like to state right now that the neighborhood groups that were meeting with Councilman Harris were handpicked special interest groups. They did not include the neighbors. We had to get a copy of one of his flyers, one of their flyers, the city flyers, copy it ourselves and circulate it around the neighborhood. That's the only reason any of us ever found out about these meetings. Okay, I'll go on. During the storm and winter of 2009, a McKinley Park neighbor must navigate an SUV through floodwaters in order to get safely home. Okay, next slide. In February of 2017, this is also my street. This is in front of my best friend's house. How are you supposed to live like this? And it's got sewage in it. And the city does not come and clean up the sewage. I've called the media, they've come out. And then the city twice has sent people in hazmat suits, but we're left with all this stuff. Anything that goes down a toilet winds up on our lawns. That includes tampons, condoms, you name it. In February of 2017, floodwaters came up so suddenly from the combined sewer system, it caught neighbors off guard and prompted a rush to save street parked cars from flooding. In several different sewage floods in earlier years, several cars on the street were deemed totaled by the insurance companies for irreparable flood damage. Next slide.
Ma'am, there are approximately 3 minutes left.
September 2015, a McKinley Park neighbor rakes leaves in sewage tainted water. For decades, the city tried to blame the sewage flooding on leaf clogged drains. This is a senior citizen out raking, thinking that she's caused it by not raking her leaves properly. Next slide. Next slide, please. In December 2014, toppled garbage cans dumped waste and toxic debris into waters already tainted with hazardous sewage. Next slide. February 2017, sewage flooding came precariously close to the Shepherd Art and Garden Center. Can you see how deep it is up that sign in the middle of the road? Next slide. The city of Sacramento's response to sewage flood calls have been hit or miss. In February 2017 here, they closed off Parkway, yet left neighbors with the task of sanitizing their yards. If city workers do respond, they are wearing head-to-toe hazmat suits. Next slide. For over 3 decades, the citizens of McKinley Park have been asking the city of Sacramento to separate the combined sewer system. In fact, at one time, they even ran a sewer pipe down our street and notified all of the neighbors that they were going to hook us up to this new sewer and that they were going to pay for everything. And so we have a vacant sewer pipe running in front of our properties. They also told us they were going to tunnel under 3 of my neighbors' houses, including my best friend's house, to try and get this fixed. None of it's ever happened. In November 2001, the city filed a repetitive loss report in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program to FEMA for 3 structures damaged by sewage floodwaters in McKinley Park. I circled them in red. Those are right around the corner from my house. In fact, these houses have been in the photos. Repetitive flood damage. So the city knows about this. City documents show that a 10-year next 6-hour storm, 2.4 million gallons of combined sewage would course through the system. The vault contains 5.6 million of those gallons, leaving 6.8 million gallons of stormwater to overflow into McKinley Park, its streets, and its neighborhoods, much more than the sewer vault will be able to handle. With or without the vault, the 10-year 6-hour storm or longer, residents' health and safety still remain at risk. Next slide. Dear board members, please do not renew the NPDES permit. It will push the decades-old need for a new and updated sanitation and separated sewer system down the road. The sewer system is separated just 3 blocks away. Why don't they come and finish it off? We're the last couple of blocks before the park, and then this whole area would be done. Don't leave us with a third world antiquated sewer system built in the 1800s. It was built in the 1890s. Taxpaying citizens of McKinley Park have a right to have their sanitation needs met. Please help us. Stop the sewage floods of McKinley Park. That's what the neighbors call them, the sewage floods. It happens every year. Thank you so much. Sorry I talked so fast. I was trying to get it all in, and I did.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that's on the panel?
I believe you have Maria Kelly.
But their time have expired.
Well, we'll give her 3 minutes.
Okay.
I have sent an unmute request to Marie.
Yes. I was prepared for a few minutes, more than 5, so I'll do the best I can. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I'm Maria Nicholas Kelly, an advocate for protecting our environment and for preserving our form of self-governance. In 2012, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determined that the city of Sacramento is considered to be at the highest risk of flooding of any major city in the nation. This warning was reprinted in an American River newsletter earlier this year. When the city's combined sewer system improvement plan was conceived, climate change was known but largely denied or ignored. Today, megastorms are hitting more often, growing stronger, lasting longer. Climate change changes everything. I'm gratified that the board is requiring the city to address this critical issue. However, To grant the city 4 more years is too long to wait and of deep concern. The city already has taken more than 25 years and has yet to complete the CSSIP. The city has approved more than 25,000 additional housing units without plans to handle the increased demand. A recent city audit revealed that the sewer fund is without the capital to complete the required capital improvement projects. The CSSIP cannot meet even the 10-year 6-hour storm upon which the plan was designed and approved. What will happen in a 100-year storm, or when our city's high risk of flooding becomes the reality? As long as there are manholes through which sewage-contaminated stormwater can overflow, sewage will continue to flow into our homes, streets, neighborhoods, parks, and ultimately our rivers. Any further expenditures toward the combined system, including sewage vaults, such as that which the city is constructing in McKinley Park, are a waste of public monies. Ineffective band-aids, they will continue to generate the risk of health and safety emergencies in perpetuity. The CSSIP is a thumb in the dike. If the city cannot meet the needs that the CSSIP was designed to solve, and the city has no funds to complete the projects, on what basis would the board renew the permit to continue the CSSIP? I urge the board to require a plan based on the reality of climate change. Climate change requires a permanent solution. The solution that truly protects our health, homes, and rivers from sewage is a separated sewer system. This board has the power and authority to require the city to change course toward a permanent solution, as originally mandated back in the 1970s. To summarize, I urge the board to predicate the permit renewal on the following. Have in place the emergency plan necessary for imminent flooding and update this plan yearly. Stop spending public monies on the failed combined sewer system. Provide the necessary funding to separate the sewer system. In closing, in this city, state, and nation, a safe and sewage-free environment in which to live is a basic human necessity. If you want this for yourself, for your families, friends, and neighbors, you must require this necessity for all who live in Sacramento, now and for the generations to come. It is time for the imperative solution, which I believe is best expressed by Winston Churchill. There are times when doing your best is not good enough. You must do that which is necessary. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
And thank you for your presentation. I believe you are the last panel speaker, which means we can now begin to ask questions. Carmen, you had a question?
Yes, it wasn't so much as a question, but I was just wanted to let them know that I was going to ask that the city of Sacramento at least address the issues that were raised by the citizen from McKinley Park, because that is, all the presentations were really good, but the pictures were very persuasive. So I would like an answer.
So I think that when we get to closing remarks, I'm going to ask the city to answer those questions. And I think I think that's the appropriate time to do that. We're going to be there very soon. So, um,
And that's exactly what I had in mind, Dr. Longley, so that's perfect.
I have to agree with you. From what I saw up until the pictures that you're referring to, those pictures are worth more than 1,000 words, maybe 10,000 words. Um, uh, that is not a very acceptable situation to be in. I know if I had a home there, I would be extremely concerned. The cleanup in particular is dangerous, and that is something that I don't know how we'll address that. We'll figure that out later as we go through our discussion. We have other interested. Are there any more questions from board members before we go on?
No, I guess I would agree. If we can address some of those concerns in the summary, that would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, same here, but there are definitely some concerns.
So do we have, oh, my blue card page went down.
Dr. Long, we have a Dennis Evans
Good.
on our list.
Let
He
us,
has been unmuted.
Sure.
Mr. Evans, you're free to speak.
Yes, sir. You know, for me, I spend a lot of my time working with green infrastructure, and I'm not going to try to say this is an answer for everything, but I see with the talent that we have here on the board, and in the Wash District in general, that with the use of green infrastructure, especially with dealing with systems up to 100 years old, that taking that approach would be beneficial. I'd love to make a recommendation, if that was okay, to dive into this case. I mean, it's not, I'm not in that area, but I could guarantee you I could come with some very unique and functional answers that would help the community. And if there's anything I could do, as always, I'm always here to help. And more than that, I wanted to make sure that I put forth my part to help the community in general. So,
thank you.
As we move on, I want to gain knowledge from each one of your experience. And I come from the shovel end of water conservation. So I'm not just somebody sitting in an armchair. I've been in the dirt, digging holes, working with pumps, working with water conservation. And I'd be more than happy to come up with a very comprehensive project plan that could possibly help to alleviate the situation. I'm not going to say it's going to cure it, because that'd be throwing too much out there. But I think if we take a serious investigation of it, that there could be a serious measure made in looking at green infrastructure, how to integrate that into the systems that are already there. And again, my whole goal is to put the water, clean water, back into our geology.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Evans, and you talk about you have some solutions. You should be talking with the city about that.
Yes, sir.
They're the folks that would be able to act upon those.
Well, it's not really even solutions. It's more of just saying let's look at this as an option, and if that option is viable and benefits the community, then yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a stand jury shows as an interested person and stated that we'll decide if speaking during hearing. Is Mr. Drury in the on the call, excuse me, on Zoom? And if so, does he desire to speak?
I do not see him in the participants list, Dr. Longley.
Okay. Very much. Then we will move on. The board will now hear a closing statement by the city of Sacramento. And you're basically out of time, but I'm going to grant you additional time because I think there are some important issues that you need to reply to. You heard both the Vice Chair Emeritus and my concerns earlier. If you could address those and address the presentations given by the concerned citizens, and particularly those slides showing feces floating that or water containing feces and other materials that ends up on people's lawn and in the street, causing a public health hazard.
I have unmuted a number of folks from City of Sacramento.
Okay, this is Tony Bertrand, again, engineering manager with the City of Sacramento Department of Utilities. I will start this process, and we do have other staff that may need to chime in. I'm going to focus on two primary areas. First are the photos. I can tell you that one of the main purposes for the vault project that is being constructed that is not operational at this point is to relieve, if not all, a lot of the majority of the outflows that you're seeing in those photos. I will say that there is always the possibility that there are higher intensity storms that are short duration that can still cause flooding where it just can't get in, and that can also be a problem. But I think the main idea there is that the vault project is intended to improve that situation dramatically. That was the entire point of that project, and I believe it's approximately a $32 million project to improve that system. In general, I can talk about funding. The city is very committed to continuing to fund the combined sewer system long-term control plan and continued maintenance operations. One thing that wasn't really talked about, I know there's a lot of emphasis being put on the drainage fund audit. We're all very aware of the challenges we have in the drainage fund. I think, as you all know, that requires a vote of registered property owners in order to increase drainage rates in the separated drainage system, and that adds to the complexity along with COVID to actually making that happen. So that's been a challenge. But I do think that it's important to note that we as the city have been funding these projects in the combined sewer system through wastewater funds that are coming in through our wastewater rates. And we have also had a fairly robust bonding program where we've issued bonds to build projects. And we've been averaging about $10 million a year over the last 7 years on projects in the combined sewer system. And I just, continue to follow up with the fact that we are very committed to finishing those phase 1 long-term control plan projects and evaluating that program moving forward to see how to continue to make improvements to the system to reduce outflows and overflows.
One of the individuals presenting from the panel characterized your system as being over 100 years old, cracked 8-inch clay pipes, which is constantly being challenged by root intrusion, grease, and debris. First of all, on the characterization of the system, if that's anywhere near correct, I don't see how it could even begin to carry the volumes of flows that you get in even a storm with a 5-year return period. Um, but given that, it would appear that there's really not a good plan on addressing root intrusion, grease, and debris, given the number of overflows that I saw in that presentation.
So I can talk to this a bit. I know the city has a very aggressive public outreach campaign to reduce fats, oils, and greases in the system from getting into the system and then causing the root problems. That's been demonstrated to be a successful way of reducing grease blockages in the city. And as far as root intrusion goes, we do have an active program in place to both do couple of different things. One, we will do root foaming, where we actually use a chemical to kill the roots. That's an active program that's in place. And then we also have an active rodding program where we go out and rod mains on a specific cycle based on the amount of maintenance that they require. So we do have active programs to do that.
But your system is also characterized as being basically over 100 years old, cracked 8-inch clay pipes. Your answer to that?
I think the answer to that is clay pipe is actually incredibly durable. There are, 100-year-old clay pipe certainly out in the system. But if it's not cracked, clay pipe that's 100 years old can actually still continue to be very efficient. There are obviously some problems with size. Sometimes the sizes can be undersized for the design flows of today's world, but we do look at that, when we program improvements. I will say also that we do have an active CCTV program. I got some numbers from my staff earlier that indicated that, let me see if I can find this. I think it was in the separated system. Getting close. I don't want to give you the wrong numbers.
Well, 8 inches. 8 inches is pretty small if you expect it to also serve as a storm sewer.
Indeed. And that's, when we go out and do rehab and replacement projects, when we have a failed pipe, if we know of cracked pipes and we know that those need to be replaced and they've technically failed, we have a rehab and replacement program where we would go out and replace those pipes. And it's not ideal, I suppose, because we aren't getting to every clay pipe in the system and every small pipe in the system, but we are spending a significant amount of money doing this rehab. And when we do, we typically replace it with a PVC pipe when we're in there doing that rehab.
Any further board members?
I have a question.
Sure.
You go ahead, Carmen. I'll go after you.
Oh, thank you. And this is directed to Mr. Burton from the city. The areas that you were describing, are those the same areas that were the McKinley area that was discussed by the presenter?
Well, we will do those projects throughout the city depending on what the greatest need is. So not exclusively in the McKinley area. Really, it depends on where we have the complaints that come in or where we know that there are failures within the system. So I would say it's more system-wide, and they're evaluated and prioritized based on need and then obviously funding.
Okay, so there are places that are worse and flood more often and more ugly than McKinley Park. And
if you're specifically talking about flooding, there are the 6 wet areas that were identified in previous permits that are all have flooding, and the effort is to reduce the flooding in those 6 priority wet areas first.
Okay, and okay, I just want to make sure I understand, because I know that City of Sacramento has a planned expansion, and it also sounds like it's spending a lot of resources addressing existing areas, so it can't really get to all the areas, but we also need to balance that with growth. right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, new areas that are putting in brand new pipes. First of all, those pipes don't need to have maintenance done as frequently. They don't have the same problems, and the designs are done based on new standards, so they're sized correctly. So that buys you some time. So a lot of the effort is in the older systems. We do make sure when developments are going in that we look at, like I think in my presentation I covered different mitigation approaches to not increase outflows or overflows throughout the city. So that is a large component of what we are doing with our mitigation program.
Do you have any further questions, Carmen?
No, thank you for the indulgence, Member Cadera, and I'm all done. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I just I'm just really concerned about some of the things that I've heard. Mr. Bertrand, you just spoke about being committed to and improving the combined sewer system, and I'm just as far as mitigation and what you're doing, and I'm just not seeing that things are happening in a timely manner. I heard these residents express their concerns, and they didn't express it like it happened in 2015 and nothing has happened about it. But this is an occurrence that happens every year that there's a storm, they get impacted. And a lot of the questions raised, I did not hear sufficient answers. I mean, the infill housing part and other proposed housing and what you're doing to address those areas. I'm not sure if some of that infill is in the area of the area where the residents have spoken about, but the responses are just not, they're just not acceptable. I think you're doing the best you can to work with the funding that you have, but I think it's just compounding a situation every year is getting worse and worse. And I want to see the level of mitigation where it's not to the degree that we have these residents speaking about it. I mean, they want to stop this from happening, and your replacements and rehab is not sufficient enough to address the whole problem. So, I mean, I just have some concerns with the presentation after listening to all the residents' concerns. I mean, 40 years of living in a place and dealing with this on a regular basis, on a yearly basis with storms, and the answers are not satisfactory. That's what I will say.
Board Member Cadera, I must say that you echo my concerns are very well. Another question I have: we saw the flooding, and we were told that seldom does the city show up to clean up the mess, and when they do show up, they're in hazmat materials, which tells me the citizens have to clean it up. They probably don't have access to the kind of hazmat clothing and tools that your city folks have. It would strike me that this is a public health issue that's not being adequately addressed, and I'd like to hear your comments on that, sir.
Sure. So I'm not sure of the specifics. I mean, I couldn't get into each event that was presented and that was shown in those photographs, but I do know that there is a program when we get information on an outflow that our city crews will go out and clean up the area and do disinfection. I don't have a lot of the details on that, but I do know that is an active program. So if they know that there has been an outflow and it's been reported, then they do go out and clean those up. And after storms, they will go out and drive certain areas where they will have, known flooding, and they will look to see if there are signs of outflows of sewage.
Okay, thank you.
No, I would like Mr. Beltran to answer that question for. He keeps saying when you hear of it and you know about it, these residents are saying some serious issues. Give me a response to how you've addressed this issue in the community, in the area where the residents are talking. what has your staff done in the previous past years, this past year, the year before? What have you done to address those concerns that these people are raising today?
So I think the biggest
Not generally, that particular area.
So in that particular area, the biggest thing that we have done is spent $32 million on this vault project. And based on our modeling results, it should reduce 100% of the outflows in a 5-year storm. I just got this information from our technical staff, and the modeling shows that it will reduce outflows by 80% in the 10-year storm. So that is a large component of what we have done for those neighbors. And it takes a long time to secure funding to do a large $32 million project. It also takes several years to get the design completed, get the drawings completed, get a contractor on board, and then to actually build the project. So I think the fact that we're, in the final stages of building this vault, we should see significant improvements over the next, maybe won't happen this year, but in the next wet season, once that project is done and operational, they should see significant improvements in that area.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. It seems like the city's doing what, it's been called a Band-Aid in some of the presentations. To me, it seems more like a minor outpatient surgery at a minimum. It's been $32 million. I was going to ask the question, you had stated that it was going to relieve the majority of these outflow events, and now you've come back with some actual data from modeling, which I think is somewhat encouraging. It seems to me there's a couple of separate issues here. These outflow events are what is causing a lot of the resident concern. There's obviously kind of projected concern related to climate change, which is real, and how that's addressed in a variety of programs is kind of beyond my pay scale, I guess. But it seems like you've built some capacity in this vault to address at least the majority of these outflow events. The sizing of the pipes and the damages caused by root intrusion and grease. I was curious, you put up a number, or somebody put up a number of 16,000 quote unquote spill events related to intrusions and breakage. Do you know if those statistics apply to city lines, or do they include laterals that individual residents are responsible for?
I am not certain. It could be both. I don't know if anybody else on the call, Brad Grant, do you by chance know that answer?
Tony, I can speak to that one.
Okay.
Currently, under our reporting process, we are not required to report private laterals. We had started to collect information about that recently, but what is reported in CWIX should not include private laterals at this time.
Okay, so that is a significant number then that the city was responsible for.
And I believe the number that was included in Ms. Broderick's presentation was based on the separated sewage system, or separated system. So just to put that in context. Okay. So that large number was not associated with our combined sewer system outflows. It's reported differently in CWIX.
Okay.
Mr. Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, are there any further questions from board members?
So, Carl, I'd like to point out, we have Marie Kelly and Ann Broderick both raising their hands. The time has expired, but it's the board chair's discretion as to whether
I saw that also.
Chair Longley, this is Vice Mayor Harris. If you could indulge me, I would like to address Member Cadera's comments about infill.
If you could keep yourself to 2 minutes, I'd appreciate that.
Indeed. So I have promoted several infill developments in the area of 65th and Folsom. And part of the burden on the developer is to upsize the sewer pipes associated with that development and anticipated new development down the road. We have a system by which all the developers can contribute to a fund. to affect these changes. The city of Sacramento is not willy-nilly approving projects for infill to burden our system without a clear intentional path to upsize the pipes and create the capacity that we need. I would also like to say I've lived in the area for 35 years. I've experienced a lot of this flooding. I've driven through it. I don't live in the immediate area surrounding McKinley Park. There are 3 blocks in specific that get very substantial flooding. The McKinley Vault should address all of those flood events. And the last thing I'd like to say is not every storm event causes a sanitary sewer outflow. Much of what you saw in those pictures was stormwater and not necessarily associated with a sanitary sewer outflow. So although it can hit you on an emotional level, it is important to note the facts of the matter, and the McKinley Vault will make a tremendous difference in that 3-block area. I believe that these residents will be very happy with the results. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. And we'll take Maria Kelly. Excuse me, I hear somebody. Let's let Maria Kelly speak. And there was one other that had her hand raised.
How much additional time, Carl?
Yeah, give 2 minutes.
Maria, your phone has been unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you. Regarding the information that was given to the council when they voted in favor of this project, they were led to believe that all of the pictures, there were some sewage pictures shown to them, and they were led to believe that all that water from the sewage would go into the vault. However, in data from the city, we were informed in the 10-year 6-hour storm from data coming from the city's own information, 12.4 million gallons would overflow or be a problem. But the vault is equipped to control or contain 5.6 million. So that leaves 6.8 million where? Outside of the vault, in the street. So it's not virtually possible to take care of all of that sewage. We know that. So where's it going to go? It's going to be a problem. It's still out there. And that's only for the 10-year 6-hour storm. Ultimately, we're talking about the reality of climate change. And climate change is not going to stop after 6 hours. Right now, people are monitoring a 1,000-mile wide arc storm gathering its force, and it's aiming, according to some reports, for Northern California. We don't know when that's going to hit. This vault was not designed to handle that, but that's the reality. Climate change rules, not what we would like to see, not to the city's table and charts. It's the reality of climate change that rules. And we have to be prepared for that. And that's my urgency about not granting the permit unless the city has an emergency plan right now. We don't know when the arc storm is going to hit. We don't know when something's going to be a drought for a long time. But we have to be honest. Did you say my time was up?
Yes, I'll give you 10 seconds to finish up.
Concerning killing the roots or putting roots to kill, as long as it doesn't kill the tree, I think we have to do things differently to preserve the trees, to preserve the natural drainage that trees and parks allow for the green solutions to climate change. So the vault is in the wrong direction. It's cement. It does not belong in the residents' front yards. And we should not take every public park and turn it into a satellite sewage storage facility. That should be stored at the treatment plants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ann Broderick, 2 minutes, and please try to stay within 2 minutes.
You've been unmuted.
I wanted to address the root problem because in East Sacramento, every house goes up to the main sewer line. There are roots in every single main sewer line because we all have trees. These roots, even if you grind them out or you put some type of chemical on them, they are going to come back. And these roots take up all the capacity of the pipe. If there's no capacity in the pipe, the water would never get to the McKinley sewer tank. It'll just be in our streets like it is now. So this tank to us is irrelevant because the water would never get there because all the streets are already inundated with roots in the pipes. And the only way they clean out the pipes is if somebody screams, my basement has flooded, and then the city comes. They have no idea what they've got, what the problems are, because they have no asset database that's accurate. And then all the new development that's coming, which has to be a separated line because that's the law, it has to be a separated line. These separated sewer lines flow through the combined sewer line, which makes the capacity even worse. You have more sewage than what's already in the combined sewer line. So that doesn't alleviate the problem either.
Thank you very much, ma'am. One other, 2 minutes for William Bosseth, City of Sacramento.
You've been unmuted, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, sir.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm Bill Busey, the Director of the Department of Utilities. I have taken the oath. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the City of Sacramento has met their commitments with regard to our operation and improvement of the combined system. There will always be funding challenges. We have met our commitments in the past and will continue to meet our commitments for the long-term control plan. Getting rate adjustments is always challenging, but our council has shown that they are willing to do that when it's necessary. We're confident in making significant efforts and are optimistic that we're going to be able to get a drainage rate adjustment. I just want to clarify that we have met our commitments and will continue to do so. We're committed to continue to do so. With regard to the routes, we have a very robust program in the combined and separated system. Our outflows in the combined and separated systems have dropped dramatically, and we're committed to continue those efforts. We understand that, as Jim Marshall stated, that the McKinley Vault is not going to solve all the problems in the combined system. It will solve most of the problems in that area, which is a significant wet area. But that's not the only project that we're going to do. There are other projects in the long-term control plan that are also going to address these outflow problems throughout the system. We believe that we are on the right track and that separating these systems would be imprudent and infeasible. And I just want to reiterate and express our commitment to implementing this long-term control plan, that to continue to implement the long-term control plan. And we've demonstrated that we can and have done it, and we will continue to do it. And I think that's all I'd like to say for right now.
Thank you very much, sir. Do board members have any questions of the speakers at this point before we go to closing statement by staff?
I would note Melinda Johnson is asking for 1 minute.
We'll take Melinda Johnson, and that'll be the last one, other than questions from board members. Go ahead, Melinda.
Thank you so much for responding. There's one other piece of information that I think may be useful to you, and that is that the existing water vault, as they're building it, sits atop a water body called Burn Slough. It was a navigable slough of great size that went from the Sacramento River to the American River, and the early merchants could avoid the rapids at the confluence by taking this. They diverted it underground. So that is compounding the problem. When we went to the original meetings, neither the city was aware of Burn Slough, everybody in the neighborhood's aware of it. We even have a street named after it. We've had houses that have split in half because of it. And we've had neighborhood group presidents who've had damages to their homes. So Burn Slough is a very big issue. When we met with the contractors had been not been notified by the city that Burn Slough even existed. You can look it up. It's BURNS. There's tons of historic material on the internet about Burn Slough and what an important piece of navigable waterway it was for commerce in Sacramento during the gold rush. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? Seeing none, we'll go to closing statement by staff.
I'm going to let Adam talk about these issues for just a minute, and then I have a few things to say.
Okay. And if you can end your statement with your recommendation, we'd appreciate that.
Adam Lapitz, Assistant Executive Officer, Rancho Cordova office, and I have taken the oath. I just wanted to have a kind of bring us back to a few of the important points with this permit. First of all, staff, as we were looking through renewing this permit and the comments that we received, we also felt very concerned about the outflow situation that was brought forward to us, and also the funding concern also was something that was brought forward, and we thought really hard and looked at what we could do with this permit to address those concerns. So I do want to reiterate that this permit is fully compliant with federal regulations. This permit meets the standards for a compliant system workflow or combined system sewer system. It's also being used as a model for the combined system sewer system permit of the city of San Francisco, the permit that we're bringing forward. One of the things that we did with this permit is we're asking the long-term control program be updated to include a reevaluation of the 10-year 6-hour storm protection for outflows, and also consult with public health on those outflows and whether or not the program is protective. And I think that's directly to address this concern. We looked across and we tried to find whether or not there was a measure for combined systems throughout the United States on the 10-year flow standard, and there is not a benchmark for these. EPA doesn't set a standard for what should stay in the combined system and how big a storm that you can design around. And so that was one of the important things that we added to this permit. I think what we want to see is with this next update is the city to address and look at these concerns and try and figure out, what additional measures might be needed. I believe the McKinley Vault will help with the problems that we're seeing in that area. I think it'll dramatically help with the problems we're seeing. And I will say that, some of the concerns that we've heard and the analysis that we've heard regarding the number of gallons that it could capture could never be enough to capture the amount. That actually is, to actually do that analysis, you need to do a hydraulic consideration of the system, because time matters. All the while sewage and stormwater is pouring into that vault, you can release flows from that vault into other storage locations. And so really you're in a race against time and how you can spread out that flow. So I don't know that I would immediately say from my perspective that it's just not enough. I think that's something that I would like to see existing modeling that the city's done. They could tell us a lot more about that. Couple other just minor or kind of minor things that I think should be considered, or actually major things. we did ask that the climate change be considered in the update of the long-term control program also. I think that's a point that staff and the regional board with their climate change policy that was adopted a couple of years ago. It's something that we want to be asking most of our municipalities to consider moving forward. And lastly, some things that were brought forward regarding sewer and sewer connections and infill development. The reality with the system is the amount of water that's added is not, the sewer connections aren't really the big players here. The big player is impervious surface. So if there's the addition of major impervious surface, that's going to increase the flows. What we've seen over the past few years, and I think Jim's presentation showed this real well, is that sewage flows system flows have been consistently decreasing. The number of outflows have been consistently decreasing. McKinley Vault will help that dramatically. I believe our permit sets them on a track to address these issues. We think that what we need to do is I think what the question that I come to with the testimony I've heard is the city's funding and the amount of funding they have. I don't think that by stopping this permit and saying we have to move to a separated system, that increases the cost dramatically. And if we're coming to the table today saying they don't have the money to do what needs to be done with the existing system and maintain the existing system, what I want to see is our permit push them in the direction collecting the fees to maintain the existing system properly before we start asking the question of whether we need to. I think he said something like 7 times the cost to try and separate these systems. So I think with that, I'd like if Jim has any additional comments to make. I know that there was one addition we had also that we want the city to model in the long-term control plan 30-year build out. And the idea there is if there are additional flows that are going to lead to more outflows in that model, we're going to be looking for them to figure out how to fix that or make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. What you said by pervious surface is that stormwater is the issue. And I'd have to agree with that very definitely. And I think also what we're looking for is an assessment report to allow us to make more specific decisions as we go down the road. Am I correct on that?
Correct. What we really need to know, I think, is what does the Department of Public Health think of this situation? What needs to be done in addition that's happening? How can we be more aggressive to solve some of these problems? We need more information, certainly, to answer those questions. And stormwater is the key. If climate change analysis at the next update shows that, oh, by the way, we're going to have a ton more water and we don't know what to do with it, our conversation is going to have to change at that point.
Exactly. And I would agree. We don't have the data at this point to make that decision. Patrick?
Yeah, no, I first of all, I want to say I very much appreciate all the comments from the city and from the local residents. McKinley Park really is one of the crown jewels of the Sacramento park system. If you haven't experienced it, I mean, it's kind of, at least one of my introductions to the city of Sacramento was that park and that neighborhood. Truly a special place. I think in terms of looking at where we are with the permit, I've been with the board long enough to see the evolution of the combined sewer system issues that the board has been dealing with for the past 15 years or so. Now, I think, just to bear in mind, I'll share this briefly, and you saw this before. Here's the entirety of the combined sewer system, the downtown area that we're talking about right now. I think we are actually at a point where, since we're just hearing about water quality issues and specifically flooding issues in the small segment of the city, we've actually the city has done a pretty tremendous job of reducing inflow into this combined system and then trying to create additional capacity within the system. I know the conversations years ago were primarily on what the impacts of this combined system would have on the Sacramento River and on the discharges from the combined sewer system. To a large extent, the city has made improvements to its system and to the disinfection that it provides for the flows that are not treated by the sewage treatment plants, such that we do not see any significant impacts to beneficial uses in the Sacramento River, which is source water for Sacramento's drinking water supply. So that in itself is kind of what the foundational issue is for the permit. Now we're kind of working with communities within the combined sewer system area that are facing particular issues due to the system capacity. And I think that's something that actually would be in place regardless of whether it was a combined system or a separate system. When you see that type of flooding in the streets and the flooding that happens, particularly around McKinley Park, it speaks to an issue of capacity. You know, there is a system there that cannot absorb the water that is flowing into it. And I think, you know, when the city says, what have you been doing for the flooding? You know, thankfully, we're not talking about impacts to beneficial uses. We've got a permit that complies with the federal policy on combined sewer systems. That's a tremendous issue. Now we have to make sure that there aren't neighborhoods within that system that are overly burdened by an antiquated system. And we're asking the city to have appropriate responses and appropriate long-term plans that, like Assistant Executive Officer Lapid said, take into account changing climatic conditions, and that's really what we're asking them to do in updating the long-term control plan. And also take into account localized impacts that might happen within the system. Now, you know, I know it's gonna be unfortunate if we say, hey, we've got this vault, it's coming online very soon. Let's adopt this permit and see what the impacts of this vault and other fairly significant infrastructure improvements are going to be. And then we'll come back and we'll review the permit. But I think that's kind of the stage that we're at right now. The city is making a good faith effort and an effort that's borne out by the technical staff that we have that reviewed it and the city's technical staff to adopt fairly significant improvements to their system to try and eliminate the flooding issues that have been happening within that neighborhood. And I do think it's worth noting, and I think the vice mayor said it, is that most of that water is stormwater. The problem is there is that sewage signature within that water because it's a combined sewer system that gives it a higher sense of urgency. So I hope, and I think the idea was with that vault coming online, we can expect to see far fewer floods, far less severe floods within that neighborhood. And however, if it doesn't address the issues, that's when we're going to need to see the really, really significant overhaul of the entire city's plan for that portion of Sacramento. And that's huge. I mean, I think that's a hugely consequential decision for the reasons that the city said at the onset. We have many people within the city, many people within communities throughout California that aren't paying their bills because they've lost their jobs, and we're in a tremendous economic crisis that is hitting a lot of people pretty hard in a lot of different ways. And so the sewage utilities are on the front lines of trying to make sure that they can make ends meet with limited resources. And perhaps, you know, since we've got a fairly significant solution coming online, already built or just about built by a sewer system that is already in a tough financial situation, we afford them the time to see how that works. See if we actually have the reduction in flood flows into those neighborhoods over the next couple of years, over the next couple of rainy seasons. And then if those flood flows are not significantly reduced, I think we can convene even before the permit terms up to determine what the future is of that long-term control program. You know, I think that's the best I would have to offer from my recommendation to how we would address this permitting system. And I would say that we are concerned. Anytime you see that water flowing through the streets, it's one thing if that's all stormwater, but because you have a combined system, the bar is that much higher to make sure that there aren't going to be impacts to human health. Even if you have a significant amount of dilution, even if the vast majority of that is stormwater, I think there's a concern that we have the obligation to make sure it's met. So I think that would kind of be the thought, that what we do is we adopt, my recommendation would be that the board approve this permit right now. We keep channels of communication open with the communities that are affected by this localized flooding. And if the localized flooding continues to happen, we'll have our enforcement team continue to review the reports coming in if there are outflows from that combined system in that neighborhood. We reconvene even earlier than the 5 years of this permit term to discuss those issues and discuss, quite frankly, is the city prepared to start planning for a multi-billion-dollar upgrade of its system within that neighborhood? Because I do remember, and again, this is kind of the board's consideration going back to the late 90s, that separating the sewer systems could be backbreakingly expensive for many of the people within that sewer system network. Remember that it covers far more than just that one neighborhood. It covers a significant component of downtown Sacramento, including less economically well-off areas of Sacramento. And so to inject a multi-billion-dollar program to upgrade the sewer in that area is a huge undertaking. It would require ripping up, like they said, like the utilities say. I completely agree. You're going to rip up every one of those streets in that area. You're going to encounter lots of utility problems that will require not just upgrades to the sewer system, but upgrades to other utilities in that area. So it is an enormously consequential decision, one that the city, I think, should be prepared to face. I think climate change could have something staring at them and saying, look, this will work less and less better as time moves on. It's something that you have to do. But at this stage, my recommendation would be approve the NPDES permit as proposed and keep our enforcement team and our permitting unit in communication with the folks who live in the McKinley Park area to make sure that if there are floods, we have a response by having an information item or potential permit revisions before the board, before the permit terms out.
I'm on. The question I have either for you or for Adam or for Jim. I note that the folks here are from McKinley Park. The area that's being discussed as flooding, and we heard there's 5 wet areas, but the area that's being discussed, which is McKinley Park area, how does that compare to the other wet areas, and how large of it is it compared to the overall area under consideration? That may be something Jim can better answer.
I would defer to Jim on some part of that question and potentially the city on other parts of it.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know if I could answer it that well. The city probably knows their system as far as that goes. As they mentioned, it is one of the wettest areas, and that's why they're focusing on in that area. I mean, looking at the outflows that have been entered into the SSO database, there isn't that many per year, at least that they're reporting. So I don't know if the majority of them are just in this area. It's possible.
So that's another issue that what you showed on your slide for outflows and what we saw on I think it was Melinda Johnson's PowerPoint were considerably different.
Hey, Dr. Longley, just if I could, if you'd like to see it, I do have a map here of the different wet areas showing how large they are within the combined system or the collection system. Would you like to see that?
Sure, certainly would.
Okay, stand by. I'm going to try to make this sharing work here this time. Okay, let's see. Did that work? Can you see it?
There we go.
So You can see the different wet areas throughout the combined system area here. And so McKinley isn't I would say is not the largest, and there's a number of other wet areas. What I don't know is the number of outflows, how it compares with the number of outflows. I would venture a guess that because they're building the vault at McKinley now, it is one of the ones they want to get to first.
Okay. And it's of interest. I think that we would like to hear back at a point in time how the problems are in the other areas besides McKinley Park, because today we're focused on McKinley Park. Given the fact that
I could add some observational data, I guess. I live in that wet area 3 down by Land Park, and we've certainly had some outflow events in the 20 plus years I've lived here, but they seem to be more infrequent than was documented in that slideshow. And I think a number of those flooding events were not outflow events. They were, in fact, leaf cloggage that the city constantly wrestles with in these neighborhoods. But I don't have any particular data to support that observation.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Mark.
And I think that's the challenge of some of these is that, the designs the city's struggling for is that the 10-year 6-hour storm, or they're working towards, is essentially everything stays in that system for that 10-year 6-hour storm. But if your system is compromised from the surface, you can keep everything you want inside that system, but if stuff can't get in, then you're going to have problems also.
Good. Thank you. Any further questions or comments by board members?
I guess, Patrick, you said that the permit could be revisited at any time during the 5-year period that it's good for. What's the trigger mechanism, and could you just explain a little bit what that looks like?
Yeah, so there are reopener provisions that we could use. I think the idea when we have a 5-year permit like this, what the board has done in the past is essentially hold an information item. Do we want to reopen this thing or not? Because again, big consequences behind that. Reopeners can include new information. New information could be the results of long-term control studies, or it could be the results of whether the vault was effective at doing what it was supposed to do or not. I would note, please do not comment in the chat. That would not be part of the administrative record. I see a few people trying to comment in the chat. The chat should have been disabled, unfortunately.
And towards that end, I would like to Mark's question. I'd like to see a workshop this after the next wet season. That would give us a pretty quick look at how effective that vault is. I tend to think that Adam is right on his description of what will happen. At the same time, the clogging of these sewers bothers me. An 8-inch sewer is not a big sewer, just even for sanitary sewers. And I've done sewer design before, so quite familiar with that. So I think that we've got some real issues here that I'll discuss after I close the hearing. Any further questions by board members of staff? If not, I'll close the hearing and we'll go ahead and discuss what we're going to do. I first of all think that we've got some real big issues in McKinley Park area. We'll certainly see what happens with the vault. If that's going to make a big step towards alleviating some of those issues. Obviously, if they have clogging by leaves and things of that sort, that's not going to fully address it. But they are getting sewage. If people are seeing the residue left behind of what you have in sanitary sewage, sanitary is not really the thing to call it, domestic sewage. Um, that causes a concern, and I think we need replies from both the city and certainly we need to see what happens with the vault. With that said, this long term, um, well, not the long term, the assessment report, which is due in 4 years, and I know that I've had concerns about the 4 years. I'd like to see it sooner, but for them to finance it, it's going to be a year before they can probably secure the financing for it. They have to do a certain amount of modeling. If we asked for it next year, they wouldn't have the data. They couldn't tell us much more than they can today. So while it bothers me we have to wait 4 years, you can't do much without data, and it's going to take that long to get the data. I'd like to hear what other board members have to say about this. At any time, I'm willing to adopt a motion. I'm willing to hear a motion rather for adoption of the NPDS permit or some other action.
Dr. Longley, hi, this is Carmen. You know, we see NPDES permits, maybe not like at every meeting, but pretty often. And they're not always smooth. They all have some issues that we need to work through. But I don't remember one that was as hard to consider as this one. I don't know that denying the permit at this point is going to solve the issues. I think that I feel where I'm going with this is that my inclination is that I would be likely to vote in support of this with the understanding by the city of Sacramento that this is really kind of the edge of where I feel comfortable with the NPDES permit going. If these issues weren't resolved, I probably would not be as sympathetic the next time they were before us. In some ways, it feels a little bit like they should be entitled to a warning of how severe I, as a board member, see these issues to be. That's not to take away from the urgency and the severity by the members that brought up these issues, right? I know these are urgent, and to wait, 4 years until there's not, sewer on my front lawn feels unreasonable. But sort of springing on this at the city at this time also feels unfair. So I intend to support the recommendation as proposed, with the understanding that if there's anything as a warning with an issue next time, then this would be sort of mine.
And I concur with you, and part of my warning is, and it's very unusual for us to ask for a workshop in a year, and I would I continue to ask for that workshop next year, but are you willing to make a motion?
Or can I, just one more thing. You said a workshop in a year after we've seen the vault in operation, but I understood from the city's presentation that it probably won't be hooked up and really functional until the winter after next. Is that true? So the workshop wouldn't be able to evaluate its effectiveness?
It would be 22 then.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that provision.
I'll amend my request to 1922. Not 1922, 2022.
2022. Okay. Well, with that, I motion to adopt the proposed NPDES permit with the reopener provisions that Patrick described, and keep the eye of a hawk on this situation, because it's not acceptable to have sewage flowing down the street.
Nope. Do I have a second?
I agree. And just to clarify, I think what the reopener provision would say, and what it does say right now, is when new information that was not available at the time of permit issuance would have justified different permit conditions at the time of issuance, that new information would be the failure of the vault to ameliorate the conditions is one justification
Well,
for reopening the permit.
Kind of like to have it regardless. I'd like to hear the good news if there's good news. I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear what the residents have to say about the vault.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think the intention would be to have a information item when the vault is up, after the vault is operational, it's been tested out. That I think would fulfill a commitment to the community, and I think that but I just wanted to clarify what the reopener provision that is in the permit that you're approving would be.
Thank you. Do I have a second from a board member?
This is Carmen, and I'll second.
Very good. I'll have a motion by Member Bradford, second by Vice Chair Ramirez. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
All right, Board Member Bradford.
Yes.
Board Member Kadara.
Is that Dr. Longley? I will not vote in support of this.
So it's a no vote.
That's a no.
Or an abstention. No vote. Vice Chair Ramirez.
Yes.
Chair Longley.
Dr. Longley's muted, right? I can't hear him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Denise, was that and I voted yes. Was that a no vote or an abstention?
Yes.
No vote, okay.
Well, look, I wasn't sure if I did not want to support it, but I will abstain. I don't want it to be a no, but I wasn't really supporting going ahead after hearing all of the concerns and where we are in the process. So I'll abstain.
We have three yes and one abstention. I don't know. Very good.
I want to know why Board Member Bradford won't take my call. I mean, come on.
So the motion
Happens to the
carries.
best of us.
The motion carries, and we're in the process of going to adjourn this meeting unless you have any further words of wisdom, Patrick.
I do not, and we will be adjourned until the October meeting, which I do not have at my fingertips right now. The date of that, I'll need a little bit of help.
While that gets together, let me apologize to the rest of the board members. As some of you know, I'm an attorney in my normal life, and I had an emergency issue come up with a client, so I have to log off the meeting. So I know you had to delay this item until I was able to get back on. So I apologize for ducking out, but thank you for waiting for me. This was an important issue, so thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And it's October 15th, 16, which would have been held in Reading, but will likely be held virtually as well, which will be held virtually as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Carmen, since you held us up, then you'll bring the virtual cookies at the next meeting.
I will.
Okay, Patrick, we wish you well with the new baby coming, you and the wife.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You all take care, and
Thank you, everybody.
stay safe.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
everybody.